Welcome to X Confessions Unlocked, where lies, betrayal, and truth collide. Kindly subscribe so you don't miss any of this. We share new stories daily. Stick around and unlock the drama. Now, let's get into today's story. My ex-wife brought her new boyfriend to our daughter's wedding just to humiliate me, but she never expected what our daughter would do next, and neither did I. I knew the wedding would be complicated the moment I saw the guest list. It wasn't just the number of people. It was the name tucked neatly in the middle of the second page, Greg Madison. I read it 3 times. Same guy, not a cousin, not a coworker. Greg, the man my ex-wife had started seeing shortly after our divorce was finalized. The same guy she swore was just a friend before everything fell apart. I sat at my kitchen table, guest list in one hand, cup of coffee in the other, staring at the paper like it might change. Like maybe my daughter had made a mistake. She hadn't. Emma was always careful, especially when it came to family. She knew what she was doing, which meant Greg wasn't just coming as Dana's +1. He was being presented to everyone. And if I'm being honest, it stung. Not because I wanted Dana back, God no. That ship not only sailed, it crashed into a rock and sank with fireworks. But I couldn't shake the feeling that inviting him wasn't just about her moving on. It was about showing him off. At our daughter's wedding, with me there, I called Emma that afternoon, not to complain, just to talk, to see where her head was at. "Hey, sweetheart," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "Got the guest list. Looks like it's going to be a big crowd." "Yeah," she said, laughing softly. "Luke's side has a ton of people, and we added some of Dana's cousins too. Just made sense." I paused. I saw Greg's name. Silence on the other end. "Then, yeah, I figured you would." I waited. "He's coming as Mom's guest," she said. "I know it's awkward, but I don't want to get into the middle of things. It's my wedding, Dad. I know. I meant it, and I won't make a scene. You have my word." She sighed, relieved. "I appreciate that." What I didn't say was that I'd already started bracing myself. Because knowing Dana, and I do, this wasn't a neutral decision. She didn't do things halfway. If Greg was coming, she'd be dressing him up in a custom suit, making introductions like they'd been together for a decade, and laughing too loud at things he said to draw attention. It wouldn't just be attendance. It would be performance. I spent the next few weeks keeping my head down. I helped where I could, driving Emma to fittings, offering to cover a few last-minute costs when the budget got tight, writing checks without her asking. She protested, of course. Always too proud. But I reminded her that this was her day, and I wanted her to have the freedom to enjoy it. She teared up a little when I said that. It wasn't dramatic, just a quick flick of emotion behind her eyes. The rehearsal dinner was my first real glimpse of how it was going to play out. Dana arrived fashionably late, arm linked with Greg's. He wore charcoal blazer, black shirt, no tie, trying too hard to look casual and effortless. He had one of those 2 white smiles, the kind you can hear coming before it enters a room. People turn to look. Dana loved that. She always loved the moment people turn to look. They made their rounds, greeting people like they were hosting the event. I was at the end of the table with some of Luke's uncles, and I tried not to watch. I really did. But every few minutes, I felt it. Dana's eyes flicking over, checking to see if I was paying attention. Greg gave me a brief nod when they passed. I returned it. I wasn't going to pretend we were friends. Emma pulled me aside after dinner. She looked tired, her hair falling out of its clip, shoulders tight. "Everything okay?" I asked. She hesitated. "You sure you're good with tomorrow?" I smiled gently. "I'm good, Em. Don't worry about me. You're not upset about them being here?" "I'm not thrilled," I admitted. "But this isn't about them. It's about you." She looked relieved again. I noticed how often she did that around me lately, searching my face for signs of stress. It made me realize how much pressure she'd probably felt trying to keep things balanced. I hated that for her. The morning of the wedding, I woke up early. Couldn't sleep. I took a walk through the neighborhood, just me, in the quiet streets, thinking about when Emma was a little girl. She used to run barefoot across the grass in the backyard, catching ladybugs, hair flying behind her like it had a life of its own. I remember thinking then how fast time would move. I was right. By the time I got to the venue, a renovated barn out in the country, strung with lights and soft music playing from hidden speakers, people were already gathering. I spotted Dana near the entrance, adjusting her earrings, Greg standing behind her, sunglasses on despite the overcast sky. He looked like he was waiting for someone to notice him. I kept walking. The ceremony was beautiful. Emma looked radiant. There's no other word for it. Her dress was simple but elegant, ivory lace and soft lines that suited her better than anything I could have imagined. Luke looked like a deer in headlights in the best way. Nervous, but overjoyed. They held hands like lifelines. When I walked her down the aisle, she whispered, "Thanks for being here." Always I mouthed. I handed her off, took my seat, and tried not to cry. I failed a little. The vows were personal, a little clumsy, very sweet. I couldn't help but watch Dana during them. She kept dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Greg didn't seem moved at all. He was checking the crowd more than the couple. I caught him looking at me once. No expression. After the ceremony came the cocktail hour. I found myself cornered by a few distant relatives, asking polite questions, offering congratulations. I made my way slowly to the bar, not because I needed a drink, but because I needed space. That's when Greg approached. "Rob, right?" I turned. "Yeah." He extended his hand. I shook it. Firm. Dry. Try to assert something, probably. "Beautiful ceremony," he said. "Emma looked great." She did. I didn't get a chance to say earlier, but Dana's told me a lot about you. I took a sip of water. "I'm sure." There was a pause. Then he smiled. "She said you're a steady guy. Predictable. Reliable. That's a good thing, right?" The message was clear. You're boring. I'm exciting. I didn't rise to it. I just nodded. "Yeah, I've always been the one who shows up. You'll learn that matters, eventually." He didn't know what to do with that. Dana appeared a moment later, clutching his arm. She looked at me like I was the waiter who'd brought her the wrong wine. "Hope you're enjoying yourself," she said, voice flat. "I am," I said. "It's a good day. Let's hope it stays that way," she replied, almost too sweet. Emma's voice rang out a few minutes later, calling everyone to dinner. I was seated at the head table, off to the right of Emma and Luke. Dana and Greg were on the opposite side. Thank God for small mercies. Dinner was good. Speeches started midway through the meal. Luke's best man told some story about a camping trip gone wrong. Laughter. Clinking glasses. Then it was time for the father of the bride to speak. I stood up, hands shaking just a little, and looked out at the sea of faces. I wasn't trying to be profound. I just wanted to speak from the heart. "I'll keep this short," I began. "Most of you know I'm not one for long speeches. But I've got a few things to say about my daughter." I talked about the first time I held her, how small she was, how fierce she was even then. I talked about the time she broke her arm falling off a swing and didn't cry until we got to the hospital. I talked about how proud I was of the woman she'd become. Not because she was successful or smart, though she was, but because she was kind, because she saw people, because she loved well. I didn't look at Dana. I didn't mention the divorce. But the air was thick. People could read between the lines. When I finished, there were tears. Real ones. Even Emma dabbed her eyes. She stood up and hugged me, hard, whispering, thank you," against my shoulder. As I sat down, I caught Greg's face. That mask of detached charm was slipping. Just a bit. Then Dana stood up to speak. Her speech was fine, a little stiff. She called Emma the light of her life. Mentioned how she'd raised her mostly on her own, how strong they'd both had to be. She didn't mention me at all. That was intentional. People noticed. Greg kept his hand on her back the whole time. Steady. Possessive. It felt less like support and more like a reminder. I'm here. I matter. After dinner, people moved to the dance floor. The DJ set up, lights dimmed. Emma and Luke had their first dance. Then it was time for the father-daughter dance. Emma came over barefoot, holding her shoes in one hand. "You ready?" "Always," I said. The song started, Stand By Me. I hadn't heard it in years. We didn't talk while we danced. She leaned her head on my shoulder, and I held her like I used to when she was small. Halfway through the song, she pulled back, looked at me, and said quietly, "Thanks for showing up. For everything." "I'll always show up," I said. She gave a shaky smile. "Good, because I think I'm going to stir the pot a little." I blinked. "What?" But before I could ask more, she turned and walked toward the DJ booth. And that's when everything started to shift. At first, no one noticed. The music faded to a low hum, and Emma leaned in close to the DJ, speaking quickly. He glanced at her, nodded, then cued something up. The soft twang of the previous song faded, and then a different tune started, slower, moodier, older. It was Landslide by Fleetwood Mac. I froze. That song, it used to be ours. Mine and Emma's. I played it when she moved to college. We played it again the day I helped her fix up her first apartment after the split. Dana always hated it, said it was too sad, too sentimental. But Emma loved it. She used to hum it while doing dishes. People were still moving on the dance floor, but they slowed as the lyrics started. Some couples swayed. I saw a few curious glances pass around the room, like they were sensing something subtle beneath the surface. Emma turned and made her way toward Greg and Dana. I watched it unfold from the far side of the floor. She was calm, composed, but there was a flicker of something tight in her posture. Anger, maybe, or nerves. "Greg," she said, loud enough that I could hear. He looked up surprised. "Would you dance with me?" Dana blinked. Greg hesitated. Then he shrugged and stood. "Of course." He followed her out to the middle of the floor. They started dancing, her hand on his shoulder, his on her waist, clumsy and unsure. And then, like a line from a quiet play, Emma said it. "So, how long were you sleeping with my mom before the divorce?" I didn't hear her. I read it. On her lips. I saw the color drain from Greg's face. I saw his grip tighten for a second before he let out an awkward laugh, like he thought it might be a joke. "What?" he said, still smiling. "I'm serious," Emma replied. "I know you were. I just want to hear you say it." Dana had frozen at the edge of the dance floor, expression locked in a perfect mixture of dread and disbelief. Like she never expected this moment to happen. Like Emma had always been on her side. Greg tried to pivot. "Emma, that's not really. You used to come to the house," she said, voice steady. "When Dad was out. I saw you twice, remember? You brought over that Thai food. Mom told me you were from work." A murmur began to build around the room. People were noticing now. Not everything, just that something was wrong. Greg cleared his throat. "Maybe we should talk somewhere else." "No," Emma said. "Here's fine. You embarrassed my dad by bringing him here. So let's do this in front of everyone." I couldn't move. I felt rooted to the floor, like watching someone walk into a fire and not being able to stop it. Dana started moving toward them. Greg stepped back. Emma stayed where she was. "Just so we're clear," she said, raising her voice. "I know you were sleeping with my mom while she was still married. You were the reason my family blew up. You lied about it. She lied about it. And then you had the nerve to show up today and pretend you belonged here." Dana was next to her now, face flushed, eyes darting like she was calculating how to take control. "Emma, stop," she hissed. "This is your wedding day. Don't ruin it." "You already ruined it," Emma said quietly. "You and him. You just thought I'd never say anything." Dana reached for her arm. Emma stepped back. "Don't touch me." It wasn't a scream. It wasn't a meltdown. It was a simple, clean line in the sand. People were silent now. The music still played. A cruel contrast. "I didn't want to make a scene," Emma continued. "But I watched my dad swallow his pride for months, so this day could be good. I saw him show up over and over, while you used this wedding as a stage for your little performance. And I'm done pretending I don't see it." Dana was shaking now, but not from sadness. From rage. "How dare you talk to me like this?" she snapped. "After everything I've done for you." Emma looked her dead in the eye. "You did what was best for you. And you thought I was too polite or too afraid to call you out. But I'm not afraid anymore." Greg put his hands in his pockets like he was trying to vanish into himself. "I want you both to leave," Emma said finally. The words dropped like a stone in still water. Dana looked around, searching for someone, anyone, to come to her defense. There was no one. Even her sister, seated nearby, was staring down at her plate. "This is ridiculous," Dana muttered. "I'm your mother." Emma didn't flinch. "You're also the woman who cheated on my father and brought the man you cheated with to my wedding. So unless you'd like to make this even worse, I suggest you go." Greg said nothing, just nodded once, turned, and walked away like a man already halfway out of the story. Dana lingered, chest heaving. "You're making a mistake," she said. Emma didn't respond. She didn't need to. After a moment, Dana followed Greg out. No one clapped. No one cheered. It wasn't that kind of moment. But there was a stillness, a heavy hush, like the air after a thunderstorm. The worst had passed. We all felt it. Emma walked off the dance floor and came straight to me. "I'm sorry," she said, voice trembling now. "I didn't mean for it to happen like that." I hugged her long and tight. "You didn't do anything wrong. I just couldn't let them stay. Not after everything. You did what you needed to do." She looked up at me, eyes wet. "Are you okay?" I laughed softly, brushing a tear from her cheek. "Are you?" She nodded slowly. "Yeah, I think I am." Luke came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her shoulders. "Everything all right?" Emma turned, rested her head against his chest. "Yeah, now it is." The rest of the night played out differently after that. People relaxed. There was dancing again, but it felt looser, more genuine, like the spell had broken and everyone could finally breathe. Some of Dana's family slipped out early. Others stayed, quietly supportive. No one mentioned what happened. They didn't need to. Later, as the party wound down, I sat outside by the fire pit. The stars were out. My shoes were off. My drink was half finished. I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Emma came and sat beside me, holding a blanket around her shoulders. "Not how you pictured it?" I asked. She smiled. "Not exactly, but I don't regret it. I'm proud of you." She didn't answer for a minute. Then, I was so afraid to say anything. For so long, I thought if I just stayed quiet, things would fix themselves. But they didn't. They just festered. I nodded. Sometimes the only way to heal is to open the wound first. She leaned her head on my shoulder. You're really good at being here. You know that? It's the only thing I've ever tried to be. She was quiet for a while. The fire cracked beside us. I think I wanted you to fight more back then, she said softly. When everything went down, I wanted you to be angry. I said, but I didn't want to pass that on to you. She squeezed my arm. I know, and I think that's what made the difference. The embers glowed. Someone laughed from inside the barn. A slow song drifted faintly through the walls. I don't need them to apologize, she said. But I needed to stop pretending it didn't happen. You did more than that, I said. You took your power back. She smiled. Guess I did. Eventually, we went back inside. The final songs played, the last slices of cake disappeared, and one by one, guests trickled out into the cool night. I stayed until the end, helping Luke's dad pack up chairs and Emma collect her things. Before I left, she hugged me again. Longer this time. Thanks for not making me choose, she said. You never had to. She nodded. But I still appreciate it. As I walked to my car, shoes in hand, stars blinking above me, I felt something else too. Closure. Not the kind that comes from revenge. Not from payback or winning. Just the quiet kind. The kind that lets you go home, sleep well, and wake up without bitterness in your throat. And in the end, that was enough. The morning after the wedding, I woke up to a text from Emma. Are you free for brunch? Just you and me? I replied instantly, of course. We met at a little spot we used to go to when she was in high school, before everything unraveled. It was one of those cozy places that still served real butter in foil packets and never updated their menu. I got there first, ordered coffee, and sat by the window watching an older couple fuss over their grandkid at the next table. Emma arrived a few minutes later, wearing a sweatshirt and leggings, her hair tied back messily. She looked tired but lighter, like someone who had finally exhaled after holding their breath for too long. She slid into the booth across from me and gave a small smile. Thanks for yesterday. You already said that, I replied, grinning. She rolled her eyes. I know, but I meant it. More today, I think. How are you feeling? She shrugged, like I was hit by a bus. But emotionally, kind of okay. Better than expected. We ordered her the avocado toast she never used to like, me the same diner omelet I always got, and talked about everything except the wedding for the first half hour. Then, slowly, we circled back around. I got a message from Mom this morning, she said, stirring her coffee. Just said she was disappointed and hurt. That I ruined her day. I let that sit a second. Did she say anything else? No. That was it. No acknowledgement. Just guilt. I nodded. Sound about right. I haven't replied. You don't have to. Emma looked out the window for a long moment. I think I always knew. About her and Greg. I mean, not the details. But something was wrong. She'd light up when he called. She started dressing different. Laughing at things that weren't funny. I knew too, I said quietly. Eventually. I just never had the proof. She looked at me, then really looked. Why didn't you say anything? Or leave earlier? I thought about that for a long moment. Because I wanted to believe it would pass. That was a phase or a bad patch or something we could survive. Emma didn't respond right away. I guess I didn't want to be the man who gave up on his family, I said. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You weren't. We sat in silence for a bit, coffee cups between us, the sounds of forks on plates, and waitresses refilling mugs all around. Can I ask you something kind of personal? She said finally. Of course. Do you think you'll ever date again? I smiled, surprised. You sound like your grandmother. She laughed. I mean it. You've been alone a long time. I thought about it. I don't know. Maybe. I've learned to enjoy the peace. The quiet. My own company. But yeah, sometimes I miss the little things. Someone to share a day with. Someone who gets your dumb jokes. She nodded. I hope you do. When you're ready. What about you and Luke? Still feeling good? Her face softened. Yeah, I really do. He didn't even blink after everything yesterday. Just held my hand and made sure I was okay. That meant more than he probably realizes. He's solid, I said. You picked well. I think I did too. We finished brunch and hugged outside the cafe. I watched her drive off, thinking about how far she'd come. Not just in the last year, but in the last 24 hours. And I realized something else. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at Dana. Not at Greg. Not even at myself. For years, I carried the shame of being left. The embarrassment of being the one who didn't see it coming, who wasn't enough. It lingered in the background of everything I did. But now, for the first time, I could feel it loosening. Not gone, maybe, but shrinking. Losing its grip. A few days later, I got a text from an old friend I hadn't seen in a while. Saw the photos. Heard some rumors. You okay? I replied with a smiley face and, better than okay. He invited me to a backyard cookout that weekend. Nothing big, just some beers and music and catching up. I almost said no. The old reflex. But I paused. Then typed, I'll be there. And I was. That night, I stood around the fire pit with a beer in hand, listening to a group of guys argue about whether 80s music was better than 90s. I laughed more than I had in months. Not forced, not polite. Real belly-deep laughter. I saw Dana once after the wedding. It was maybe 3 weeks later at the grocery store. She looked thinner, tense, like she hadn't been sleeping well. I was in the produce section. She turned the corner with a basket and froze when she saw me. I nodded polite. Just enough. She opened her mouth, but whatever she was going to say, apology, excuse, lecture, died before it left her lips. I went back to picking out apples. She didn't follow. And that was that. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that Greg had moved out of her place. Something about needing space. It didn't surprise me. People who start something in betrayal rarely find peace in each other. The guilt echoes too loud. Emma didn't talk about her mother much after the wedding. She told me she'd sent a message a week later. Something simple and firm. I love you, but I don't trust you. And until that changes, I need space. Dana replied with a long string of defensive paragraphs. Emma didn't answer, and I didn't try to interfere. That was their relationship to sort through. Or not. What mattered to me was that my daughter stood up for herself. Not just against them, but for herself, for her worth, for her boundaries. I'd spent so long trying to shield her from the fallout that I hadn't noticed how strong she'd become in the process. It was funny, in a way. Dana and Greg came to the wedding thinking they'd make some kind of statement. A subtle punishment. A reminder that they'd won. Instead, they walked into a room filled with people who had quietly stopped giving them the power to define anything. They weren't villains. Not exactly. Just broken people who broke things around them. But now, they were gone. And we were still here. A few months later, I got a call from Emma. She and Luke were back from their honeymoon. A modest trip up the coast. Just the two of them, hiking and reading and resting. We're thinking of having people over next weekend, she said. Low-key. Just some food and drinks. You should come. Wouldn't miss it. When I arrived, Emma was in the kitchen, barefoot, tossing a salad. Luke was grilling outside. Their place was small, but full of light. Real light. The kind that spills in through windows and makes everything feel softer. Emma handed me a drink and asked if I'd sit with her while she finished prepping. I leaned against the counter, watching her move around like she belonged there. Like she was home, finally. I kept thinking about what you said, she told me. About peace. About letting go. And I'm trying. It's not easy, but I feel lighter every time I stop looking backward. I nodded. That's the only direction that matters now. Later, when everyone was sitting outside under string lights, Emma raised a glass. The chosen family, she said, and to knowing when enough is enough. We all raised ours. And that, I think, was the real ending. Not the wedding, not the fallout, not even the scene on the dance floor. It was here, with my daughter, in her home, surrounded by people who respected her enough to stay, and who loved her enough to leave her be. I never got revenge. I never got an apology. But I got something better. I got my daughter's trust back. I got my dignity. I got my life. And as far as I'm concerned, that's the only victory I needed. My ex-wife brought her new boyfriend to our daughter's wedding just to humiliate me. But she never expected what our daughter would do next, and neither did I.